Somebody sent me an email recently asking me about Governor Newsom's Ag Equity Commission, his committee that's been putting together this Ag Equity Plan. And they asked me, is this something out of a third world country? And well, yes. I mean, the concept we've seen done in Zimbabwe, we've seen it down in South Africa. They call it agricultural equity, they call it volunteer, but what normally ends up happening, as we've seen in other places, is that it becomes forced at some point in time. It's to the point in South Africa where they just simply take the land and they don't care. If you've been watching what's been happening in California lately, Point Reyes, Potter Valley, the things that Mid-Penn's been doing, then you probably know that equity means one thing on paper and a whole other thing on the ground. So in September of 2025, for those of you who don't know much about this, California's Strategic Growth Council released new drafts from its Agricultural Land Equity Task Force, a group that was created under the 2022 budget to improve access to farmland for socially disadvantaged and beginning farmers, just not all beginning farmers. Now the phrase farmland redistribution is popping up all over social media, and you've probably heard me use it on multiple occasions, because that's what it is, farmland redistribution, under the guise of some sort of equity.
Every day, more and more Americans are waking up to the fact that our society is simply unhealthy. We've been being fed poisons and being told to put poisons on our body by corporate America for years. A lot of the things that we've been told were bad for us, like animal fats, are actually good for our bodies. Your skin is the largest organ of your body, which is why on Yanasa Trade & Co., we're pleased to offer you guys bison tallow lotions and creams. These bison tallow lotions and creams are amazing. They're not made by a big corporation. They're made by a homesteader, just like you guys, our friends out of Canada, Dr. Nathaniel and Susan Ostashowski. We've visited numerous bison ranches and farms and parks across the entire continent of North America. And these are some really great people who have come up with some really great products, and you can buy them on Yanasa Trade & Co. and support this program and support your health all at the same time.
But to set the record straight, what they're doing in California isn't exactly labeled as taking and then redistributing. They're using things like voluntary sales, public land leases. You're probably going to see a lot of public land leases because California doesn't actually want to give up the land that they take back. Low interest loans, tax credits, the normal stuff. Sounds pretty harmless, right? Voluntary, equitable, inclusive. But guys, the devil's not in the headlines unless his name is Newsom. He loves the headlines. The devil in this is actually in the machinery behind the policy. Well, I guess that's Newsom. California has this web of existing and upcoming laws that are basically driving farm and ranch land out of production. For example, there's the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA, which requires overdrafted basins to balance by 2040, 2042. The Public Policy Institute of California estimates that up to 1 million acres could be fallowed just from this one act. There's the Multi-Benefit Land Repurposing Program, MLRP, paying regions to transition farmland to habitat, recharge, or community use. And there's the solar use easements under State Bill 618 and AB 1156, letting landowners easily convert ag contracts into solar projects. Now, to be clear, none of these laws actually take land from farmers and ranchers. What they do is they price farmers and ranchers out of the land. They take farmers out of the land with water caps, regulatory fees, compliance costs. It gets to the point where voluntary repurposing is the only choice that they have. Point Reyes is a perfect example of that. What's going to happen in Potter Valley will be another very large example of that. And then, they have these new equity programs to step in and help somebody else buy that land through special loan programs, through special state-funded grants to give the land to people, or the state will buy it themselves and do state leases back to certain types of farmers, certain indigenous groups. So nobody's sitting there, swinging a hammer, forcing a sale or anything like that. But I would argue the state has kind of built this kind of conveyor belt. From water scarcity to fallowing, to funded exits, to reallocation under equity programs. That is what we call redistribution by design or by drift. And like I said, we're seeing it in real time right now. Real time, it's being effective. When you look at Potter Valley, when you look at how they have had to cut off water to the Russian River, they've essentially removed the water for irrigation for all of those farmers and ranchers. They did that last summer. They still don't have water. They don't have water going into next spring. They're not going to be able to plant. That land is going to become ineffective. It's going to become very cheap if they don't have any water. If they take that dam down, that water will never return. Those farms and ranches will never return to profitability. They're not taking their land, but they're making it impossible to manage it. In Point Reyes, yes, ranchers accepted buyouts, but under a significant amount of pressure. And those who are left behind are saying that the things they have to comply with, the regulations that have been put on them, make it unviable to continue ranching. They should have taken the buyout. Even if you go down the central coast of California, Midpen has been canceling generational leases with ranchers. The Delta Conveyance Project, that's going to take water away from more farms, more ranches. Ironically, it's the big corporate farms that are going to benefit from this because they're going to pipe it down to them. Pipe all the water down to the cities. Has nothing to do with fish because they're going to impact a lot of fish when they do that. All of these things are framed as environmentally necessary. The taking of the land is framed as voluntary. But what it really is working lands becoming paper lands being managed from afar and their productivity being stolen from underneath the ranchers and farmers to the point where they don't have any other choice but to take part in this wonderful ag equity program. Now, a lot of supporters will say that this is inclusion. It's about fixing barriers of entry for new farmers. It's about returning farmland to and other lands to tribes. And that all sounds noble, it all sounds great. But to farmers, this is something else. Besides, what good is land access if the state just keeps making it impossible for anybody to farm? Are they going to change the rules after they're done with this massive transition? The fact of the matter remains in California that equity, land equity without water, without viable margins, without even having tenure stability isn't really equity at all. But this is how they're moving this program along. I think that when we look at what's going on in California, we can call it for what it actually is. It's basically policy-driven redistribution without having to go through the politics of confiscation. No, nobody's storming the gates or nationalizing the property yet. But as we've seen how these voluntary programs work in places like Zimbabwe and South Africa, it does happen. And I am convinced that in some sort of way, Newsom is like this project of the UN. He's like the project guy. But all of these policies, all of these events that we're seeing in California are shaping the future of farmland and ranchland. It is taking control. We're about to go through this massive change in ownership. If you look at the age of farmers and ranchers across the United States, they're retiring. Families aren't returning to the farm. There's going to be more land going on the market and changing hands over the next 10 years than we've seen throughout American history. And these types of policies, these types of actions that California is taking is taking control through policy, through government funding, how that is going to shake out, what it's going to look like in the future, and how affordable that property is going to be. In some of these cases, they will completely destroy family legacies, their fortunes, by destroying the value of that property right before they have to sell it. They're basically changing who gets to steward the land, who gets to steward the soil, who gets to feed us. Agriculture in California is huge. Its impact reaches every single one of us across the United States. Because of the policies out there in California, because of the actions the state has been taking over the last couple of years, when they throw out the word equity, to me, it just means replacement. Anyway, guys, if you want to learn more about some of the things I talked about on this video, check out some of our other videos here on Yanasa TV. We've covered a lot of these topics throughout the past, and there's a lot of information out there, including a great interview with Dr. Brazil from Potter Valley. Stay tuned for more videos like this here on Yanasa TV.
Ancient eras and natural selection have refined and tailored pristine fibers with the resilience for today's days. Evolving beyond the last ice age, bison wool is nature's most dependable activewear. Buffalo Wool Company, 100% proven by nature, 100% American-made.
Check out the Buffalo Wool Company collection at yanasatradingco.com.